The future of energy isn't just about buying and selling power, but it's how customers want to hopefully become educated enough to really look at how they're using it and how to become more energy efficient within what they can control and be mindful of what's out there and available to them. Plug-in solar is something that's becoming a hot topic out in the industry. And for those of you that haven't heard about it, it's the idea of bringing solar to more people by not having to the cost and the complications of installing solar panels, but allowing you to have something that essentially you can hang off a balcony or put onto a back deck and plug into your home. There are 7 states that have currently approved legislation to allow for plug-in solar. There are 30 states that are currently reviewing and have it under consideration. Texas, interestingly enough, is not one of them. And there are 2 states that have currently killed the bill and have it sitting in committee. So do we think this is an indication of what's coming in the future? What impact do we think it's going to have on the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fits somewhere between that niche product and something that is going to see larger adoption in the industry. I think it really depends on the crowd that it finds a home in. So right now, Europe has an estimated 4 million of these balcony solar panels installed. Do I think that we'll get to 1 million in the US in a couple years? I don't know. But I think there's a problem it's trying to solve. I don't know if it will solve the problem though.
When you think about it, the sizing of the units that they're talking about is typically around 1200 watts. I don't know that the average consumer understands what 1200 watts really is. That breaks down to about 3 to 5 kilowatts per day in optimal sun. An apartment might use 1200 kilowatts in a month, and large homes can go over 2500 kilowatts in a month. So, does 3 to 5 kilowatts a day or 130 to 150 really make a dent in that?
I think one of the very first things people ask is, how much is it? Right? And how much is it going to save me? So, just in the words that you just said, 3, kilowatts a day, that's nothing. A lot of people get that way, 30 cents. Right? If I'm spending on the low side $500, it's like, when am I going to make that money back? I'm paying for something up front, saving 30 cents a day. It just doesn't make sense.
It'll be the gamification of the process, right? So the people who buy them, they're going to install them and then they're going to track them with the app, right? And it's going to be like, okay, how much, am I gaining off of this solar panel that's on my balcony? What can I do to reduce my load while I have peak sunlight? What are those things that I can turn off? Trying to chase the random always on power source that you didn't know was there and unplug it to see how close to net zero you can get. I think it's going to be the people who care about it are going to see benefits from it because they're going to try to, chase the win, right? It's the same thing when people were switching to the time of use products, right? Nights and weekends fee, right? All the people who started to try and shift their load to like, well, I'm only going to do laundry at night and on the weekend. We're gonna turn all of these things off until after 8 p.m. and then we'll start doing stuff. I think you'll have the shift the other way in that piece. The thing that I was reading, what they saw in Germany, which is really, really big, and then the rest of Europe is starting to take over, is that cure of energy blindness and this being treated as a bit of like the gateway electronic, right? So you have the people who are buying them that start to really monitor their energy use and energy consumption. And if they see that there's the potential there, right? Hey, I invested $400, $500, whatever it is, and I did shave some level of, cost off of my bill. Well, what if I just go ahead and when I move into my home or whatever, I go ahead and invest the $10,000, $20,000 and do full rooftop panels, get wall batteries and everything else, and really try and get my consumption all the way down to net zero. There's been a really big trend between the people who are doing the solar battery panels starting out and then transitioning into that full solar piece. And then the secondary one is for the people who stay in the apartments who are really, really monitoring their electricity and trying to win, right? They're trying to beat the energy retailers and get their costs as close to zero as they can during those, peak sun periods.
So it's interesting, Matt. One of the states, Georgia and Wyoming, that I said killed the bills in committee. One of their arguments is the idea that people who pay less, that are winning the game, as you say, aren't paying their share of maintaining the grid. And that's why they're trying to stop the legislation and approval of it. I think it's probably the wrong way to look at it because there's still standard customer charges. There's still going to be, you can put on a monthly fee. There still has to be some transmission and distribution charges. And they're going to have to start to support changes in how we not only create energy, but consume it in order to stay relevant and with the consumers, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that looking at anytime a company starts to look at their consumers as like the enemy or an adversary, I think they usually end up on the wrong side of it, right? Because it's you're dealing with millions of people in your area that are looking to transition. They're looking to figure out how they can save money, do something else to allow them to achieve whatever success and happiness means to them, and putting that and saying no, they're going to hurt the grid or they're not doing their part to maintain it is not a winning solution. I do think where there's the concern though is if you do get a large, say, local populace that has these plug-in solar panels and they're all plugging it in, you have a really high peak summer or peak sun day, no clouds, and you have this huge backfeed that then goes into the market. If the equipment, if the infrastructure that is around that area is not set up to really support that influx of backfeed coming from that distributed, almost like a small residential power plant that's coming in, that's where I think you can have issues, right? If they're not taking care of those transformers, you're going to have, that's where those equipments are going to fail. You're going to start to have brownouts. And so there does need to be something. I think that's where they need to look at the legislature and how can they get these products and contracts in place so that if you do have people who are running solar in their house, that there is part of that view of like how do we help maintain the infrastructure, even if that's extra costs that come in through flat monthly fees or something, if that's what they're worried about.
At 1,200 watts and 3 kilometers a day, do we think that it's really going to get to a point that it's generating more than your refrigerator, your basic appliances plugged in would consume?
So they are seeing that in Europe. So in Europe, they are seeing it where customers are cutting their, what you would call your house's base load in peak sun times. Now, I think those are probably apartments where people aren't home, right? They're in an office somewhere working, so all of their lights are off. It's the the AC that's running, the refrigerator that's running, your Wi-Fi router that's running, all these like little things that are kind of siphoning off power outside of your big units. They are seeing where people are kind of cutting out some of that base load. Now, is it getting all the way to zero? No, but I think if the more that you have people start to invest in it, it's going to be people who are like, well, I bought one 800 kW or one 1200 kW panel. Why don't I just buy two, right? Let me see what I can do with two. And then you start to have almost, a mini solar farm.
But yeah, but then think about it, right? I mean, if your best fit users are apartment complexes and people that have a balcony, are they really going to have a stack, right? Or their whole balcony is not going to be 3 panels or something. And now they don't have a balcony anymore because it takes up that space. And so, it's like you're definitely trading something there for maybe now 9 kilowatts per day, right? Is that worth it? So I think when you talk about, let's say, ERCOT specifically in Texas and so forth, people move here all the time for bigger homes, right? They get more of their money, bigger homes. I think plug in, specifically just plug in solar systems with such a small amount of energy being provided for their home, it's just going to be not enough at this point in time, right? I think this is going to be, it's going to need a lot more of maybe, technology to bring in to make it worth it. So like add in a battery. Okay, I can understand. Those 3, those 6, those 9, they start accumulating and whatnot, and maybe you'll use it at some point. But not just in itself, right? It's how I kind of see it.
So what I've heard is that this technology could be sort of a gateway to allow people to try out solar, so that when they're moving or have an opportunity to go to the full blown solution of solar panels, because there still are people out there that are like, I'm not putting that on my house. And you hear all the horror stories of it's just going to damage the roof and it's going to cause leaks. And if they haven't done the research, that's sort of where a lot of people are stuck. What's the ROI? When does it come back? There's also the idea of what they call zero export systems, where you can have smart meters that start to tell you where your load is coming from. It will throttle down based on how much you're using and what goes through the inverter. It helps measure your load. When you talk about gamification, I could really see people getting behind that. But then that means you've got to have circuit breakers that were all up to date. They're trying to build them so that they don't break or don't flip a 15-watt amp, which is typical to a home. Do you have enough space to put even that infrastructure within your panels today? And not every home has that. I think you almost have to start building homes to accommodate it if that was going to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why, like I said at the beginning, I think this is for people in the suburban area, right? Yeah, everybody moving to Texas for those bigger homes. This is going to be a gateway appliance, right? This is going to be the thing that somebody's buying because electricity has spiked and looking to curb something, and then as they are monitoring what is happening with their solar panel and what it's doing, right? That's going to lead to, do I have the right appliances? Do I need a change to get more energy efficient appliances? Do I need to look at doing micro batteries? I think that's where you're going to see the shift on in the U.S. is going to be that. It's going to be the plug-in solar, lead to battery, lead to how I'm monitoring my energy efficiency, and then ultimately decide, well, I'm just going to go and do a full rooftop solar because that's the only way I'm truly going to get to net zero in what I'm doing.
Connie and I were chatting earlier, and she made an interesting point. We seem to be spending a lot of time on trying to produce more energy. When do we really focus on items that are consuming the energy? How do we continue to make those more efficient? Because it doesn't seem that there was a push at one point, but it doesn't seem that there's a huge push in that today. Your AC unit takes up a ton of electricity. We know that when we hit the summer and it's hot in Texas, that sits outside in full sun most of the time. Why isn't that more energy efficient? Let's put solar panels on that puppy and let it be more efficient and consume less. When are manufacturers going to focus on that?
Yeah, you're trying to solve a problem of paying lower bills. So why not actually fix the issue, right? It's these appliances that are driving up your, your price tag. Your home is not energy efficient. It's like, how do we fix the roots of the problem? And then I say problem, but I mean, it's what's consuming your energy. It's what's driving your bill up. You're trying to offset it somehow, but why not really take a look at, not just what you're using, but also how you're using it sometimes, and how do we make that just a lot more energy efficient overall?
Well, thank you guys both very much. Hopefully, I know I learned a lot doing the research on this, and seeing what was out there. Hopefully, you guys did too, because it sounds like we all did a little bit on our own here. Hopefully, everybody else has learned something from looking at this. Um, and so I think what we're saying is that the future of energy isn't just about buying and selling power, but it's how customers want to hopefully become educated enough to really look at how they're using it and how to become more energy efficient within what they can control, and be mindful of what's out there and available to them.